Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the 2025-2026 season of the John Jay Boys Basketball Podcast. My name's Robert Seipp. I'm the varsity coach here at John Jay, and today I'm running solo, folks. January 11th, 2026, Sunday evening. A little late sort of getting this podcast organized this week, so I do apologize, but I was planning on having Coach Procaccino and Coach Betcher along with me, but it's just me for tonight. So let's get into the week that we had and then the week that we've got coming up. So the week that just passed, the week of Monday, January 5th, 2026, we had Arlington scheduled for Tuesday, January 6th. And that got snowed out or iced out, or there was some weather in the forecast that had canceled after school activities on Tuesday, January 6th. So we had to reschedule that game. Unfortunately, that storm actually kind of never came, but always better to be safe than sorry. Don't get me wrong. I always think that it's a good idea to be safe in those situations. You know, you never want to risk anybody getting hurt. In slippery roads and icy conditions and snowy conditions. So the district did the right thing and canceled after-school activities for Tuesday, January 6th. So we immediately rescheduled with Arlington for the next day, Wednesday, January 7th. Thought it would be okay. We played Ketchum on Thursday, January 8th, but we're always okay playing back-to-back. We played 3 games in a row in that holiday tournament. We played great in that third game against New Paltz, a very competitive game and a very competitive team. So we never have a problem playing back-to-back, so that was fine. So we rescheduled the game against Arlington. We were hosting it for Wednesday, January 7th, but we couldn't get referees for the game, so that game got canceled as well. And it is now scheduled, I believe, for February 2nd at 5 p.m. at John Jay. So it'll be a while before we get to see Arlington again. Arlington, awesome basketball team, right? They won the Dutchess County, coaches holiday tournament at Lord's, beating Lord's by almost 20 points, I think. So Arlington would have been a difficult basketball game for us, but that'll happen on February 2nd. So then on Thursday, January 8th, we went to Ketchum. And we played against Ketchum for the first time this year in the 4th annual Jules Urillo Michael Ambrow Memorial Basketball Game. And we were 1-2 in that game. We actually lost the first 2 games, and we've won the last 2 now. So on Thursday, we were able to beat Ketchum 56-49. We've talked about Ketchum, such a good team, such a well-coached team. Coach Pano over there does such an awesome job with the entire program, not only his varsity program, but running camps and that they just their off-season program. He just does such a great job. So it's always a tough game to play and such a tough game to win. And not to mention it's the John Jay Ketchum rivalry, right? So it seems no matter what the talent is of teams and what the sport is, a Jay Ketchum game is always a competitive one, always a tough one. I've been at John Jay for what seems like forever. My brother Dave is the principal at Ketchum, so that adds a little bit more spice to it from a Seipp family situation, but a very healthy rivalry. I love my brother. My brother Dave loves me. Love Coach Pano over at Ketchum. Just have a ton of respect for him. And for what he does with the program and for all the players that play for him. But we were fortunate enough to win that game 56-49. Didn't play great. I think we were losing at the end of the first quarter 14-10. Wasn't really too happy with how we played in that first quarter, but played a little bit better in the second quarter. Won that second quarter 17-11. So we went into halftime with a 2-point lead, I think, 27-25, something like that. Don't quote me on that. And in the halftime locker room, we really talked about what we were doing on the offensive end. First of all, we weren't too happy with how we were defending. but we really had focused on the offensive end because Ketchum sat in a 2-3 zone, which I'm a big fan of. I got to be honest, but they sat in a 2-3 zone for most of the holiday tournament, if not all of the holiday tournament. So we were certainly expecting, that when we had faced them. So we had worked pretty hard on attacking a 2-3 zone, and we primarily focused on three different ways to attack it. One, just moving that ball really quick. And we weren't able to do that for whatever reason. When you pass the ball, hold it, hold it, hold it, pass the ball, hold it, hold it, hold it, and you really want to move that zone. You really want to get all five players sliding, side to side, up and back. And I just really wasn't happy with our ball movement. That was one way that we were talking about attacking the 2-3 zone. The second way we had talked about was just some movement off the ball. And we had ironically played White Plains yesterday on Saturday. Talk about that game in a minute. But we were, in a 2-3 zone against White Plains. And I was telling the guys on the bench, like, look at their movement off the ball. Look at how they're cycling. It was pretty impressive. They did a much better job attacking us in the 2-3 zone than we did attacking Ketchum. So that's the second. And I don't think our players feel comfortable with that. Just the movement off the ball, just where we have players moving when the ball's thrown from one particular area to another particular area on the court. We ask guys that are not involved to move in a particular direction. And for whatever reason, our guys just are unsure and uncomfortable with that. And as a coach, it's always tough because when your players are not naturally just playing basketball, it's something you probably don't want to do. You don't want to ask them to do that. But that's the second way that we had talked about attacking that zone. And then the third way was screening the zone. And for whatever reason, we weren't really able to do that well either. I remember calling some timeouts and talking to the players specifically about, exactly what we wanted to do and what guys we wanted to screen. But for whatever reason, we just weren't able to get it done. Listen, in the end, we won the game, right? We won the game 56-49. So we were able to beat Ketchum by 7. Always a good win. Always an emotional game for me, knowing personally Jules Urillo and Michael Ambron, and that game is in memory of them. And definitely nice for us to be 2-2 now. We both, Coach Pano and I, both have plaques at our respective schools, and each year we put the score on a plate, and we screw that plate into the plaques. So I'm in the process of getting that for this fourth annual game. So just a nice memory, when students walk into, I think it's room 160 or 162, I can't quite remember at John Jay, which was Mr. Ambron's room. Mr. B, who took over for Mr. Ambron in terms of teaching economics, has been incredibly gracious, having that plaque hang up there. So very, very appreciative that he is so welcoming of that for us. And I think that Ketchum does the same thing. So we'll get that John J 56, Ketchum 49 score up on the respective plaques pretty soon in about a week or so. But that's the story with that Ketchum game. So we play Ketchum 2 more times. Believe it or not, that was not a league game. So that was a non-league game that we play against Ketchum. So that doesn't count towards our league standings. But I do have some stats for that game, some stats that I thought were fairly interesting. We were 40% from 3-point range, 6 for 15 we had shot from 3-point range. Ketchum was 33%. They went 8 for 24 from 3-point range. We were 75% from the free throw line. And I thought the big thing for us was rebounding. So we out-rebounded them 27-23, which I thought was great, primarily because we didn't have Austin Seipp for this game. Austin has been sick really all week long. So he missed the Ketchum game. He would have missed the Arlington game. He missed the Ketchum game, and he missed the White Plains game. And Austin, phenomenal athlete, my own son, the godson of the Ketchum principal. So, we were sad on a number of fronts that Austin wasn't able to play in that Ketchum game. but also from a basketball standpoint, he is just awesome for us down in the low post and in the paint and getting rebounds, both on the offensive boards and on the defensive boards. So Austin really helps us out. So for us to out rebound Ketchum 27 to 23 was pretty impressive. Again, without Austin Seipp, so that was something that I was happy with. And something else that I thought was interesting was the turnovers. We had 13 turnovers in the game against Ketchum, and they had 13 turnovers. Remember those numbers when we get to the White Plains game. Well, I'll give it to you right now. When we went to White Plains on Saturday, we had 27 turnovers. I'll repeat that. So in Ketchum, at the Ketchum game, we had 13 turnovers, and we win the game by 7 points, 56 to 49, committing 13 turnovers. You don't want to have any turnovers, obviously, as a coach, but 13 turnovers, not terrible, right? And when we went to White Plains, we more than doubled that number, right? 27 turnovers we had at White Plains, and spoiler alert, we lost that game by 11. So the turnovers was very disappointing in that White Plains game, but impressive in the Ketchum game. And some other stats for that Ketchum game: John Vaquel was awesome for us. He had 20 points. And Johnny Wilson, a sophomore, had 12 points in that game against Ketchum. And again, just coming out of that game, just happy we won for sure, but still a little on edge about how on the offensive end, we just weren't able to look smooth, to play quick, to be decisive on the offensive end. I feel like on that offensive end, we're just so indecisive, and we just are very tentative on the offensive end. And again, we'll talk about White Plains in a second. But to commit 27 turnovers, you're just sort of you're not confident in what you're running on offense, or where you should be passing the ball, or whether or not you should be dribbling or shooting. Where you should be setting screens. So really hoping as we come up for this next week, which is a killer week for us in terms of the opponents that we have. Really hoping that on the offensive end, we can just, if nothing else, get into some continuity. I'm watching a lot of Vanderbilt men's basketball lately, and man, they just seem to be so cohesive and all in sync and on the same page on the offensive end. And I'm just struggling to see how we can get our guys, to be in sync on that offensive end. But at any rate, that was the story with the Ketchum game. We did play well defensively. Also, in my notes here, I have that we only gave up 24 points in the second half, which I was really impressed with. I think we went primarily man to man in that second half. So that was something that I think both myself, Coach Betcher, and Coach Procaccino were really happy about. Coach Procaccino is a big man-to-man defense guy. He and I joke all the time. I'm a big zone defense guy, and he's a big man-to-man defense guy. I think Coach Betcher can kind of, sees the value in both. But I know Coach Procaccino was very adamant at halftime. We got to go man in that second half against Ketchum, and I know that we can match up well with them. Again, I was a little concerned not having Austin there, to match up with their big guy. But we did win the game, and we did play well defensively, especially in that second half. So always nice to get a win against Ketchum. Always nice to honor Mr. Ambron and win the game for him. So now 2 wins for Jules Arillo, 2 wins for Michael Ambron. So we'll see what happens next year. We'll see who takes the 3 games to 2 lead. And then on Saturday, so Friday, then we had practice, and it was a big turnaround in terms of what our focus was for practice on Friday, because on Friday now we would know we're going up against White Plains. They're primarily going to play man-to-man defense against us, so we're really working on our man offense as opposed to our zone offense that we were preparing for with Ketchum. And I thought we had a pretty good practice. I really did on Friday night. I had some good energy there on Friday night. We had some fun for sure at the end. We typically have an hour and a half practice, but we had a 2 hour practice that Friday night. And the last half hour, we just kind of, put 30 minutes on the clock and let the players play, and they had a good time. But it didn't exactly result in what we had hoped for on Saturday. So on Saturday we go down to White Plains, and at the end of the first quarter we're down 16-11. And then in the second quarter we actually were still down by 5 points at halftime. We scored 16 in the second quarter, and White Plains scored 16 in the second quarter. So we're down 32 to 27 there at halftime. And we always 60 points is really our barometer. We always want to be above 30 points at halftime in terms of the scoring that we have. So to only have 27 was a little disappointing against White Plains. And for them to have 32, we want our opponents to be under 30 points, because 60 points for a high school game, at least for us anyway, is sort of, what we judge. If we can keep teams under 60, we feel like we've got a decent chance to win the game. If teams are scoring over 60, a lot of times it becomes a lot more difficult for us to win the game. So at halftime, we always sort of take a check. Of course, I'm a math teacher. Coach Betcher is a math teacher at John Jay. So we are sort of numbers focused. So to be down 32-27 at halftime, wasn't exactly where we wanted to be. But regardless, I thought we were very, very competitive in that first half against White Plains. White Plains is a very good team. Let me see what their record was. I think last week I had mistakenly said that they were not good, but they are 6-2. White Plains is a really good team. They're ranked fifth right now in Section 1. And again, their record is 6-2, so they've got a really good squad. White Plains, they really do. Excellent coach. He's been there for a long time. Great guy too. But we definitely competed in the first half. And to be honest with you, I thought we competed the entire game. The big problem that we had, and I mentioned it earlier, was in the Ketchum game we only had 13 turnovers. And in this White Plains game, we had 27 turnovers. And I would love to say to you, really want to give credit to the White Plains defense, because they really put us under pressure and forced those turnovers. And they are very good defensively. They held us to 51 points. We lost the game at White Plains 62-51. So they held us, to 51 points defensively. So they do have a very good team and a very good defensive team. But a lot of those turnovers, especially I can remember in the third quarter, I want to say the first 4 possessions in the third quarter, we turned the ball over. I could be wrong there, but I remember calling a timeout and early in the third quarter after a couple of possessions that we had turned the ball over, just sitting the guys down, and I'm just saying, guys, take a deep breath, man. What are we doing out there? What in God's name are we doing? We can't be throwing the ball into the stands. We got to be throwing the ball to each other. So it was just some real uncharacteristic turnovers from us. And again, 27 turnovers for the game at White Plains, as opposed to 13 just 2 days prior at Ketchum. And we knew it on the bench. I mean, we knew as coaches, man, just one turnover after the next. And I believe White Plains had 20 turnovers. So we were doing a pretty good job defensively as well. Yeah, so we turned the ball over 27 times. They turned it over 20 times. But if we could get 7 of those possessions back, could we make up those 11 points? Yeah, it's definitely possible, right? And if we could, get from 27 down to maybe 13, or even if it's 17, if we could get 10 possessions back, could we make up those 11 points? Yeah, we might be able to, right? No guarantees on that, obviously, but just to have an extra 7 to 10, and if we could get 14 possessions back like we did in the Ketchum game, now we're talking. But again, just some real uncharacteristic turnovers from us in that White Plains game, which in the end, in my opinion, was the main reason why we had lost the game. The other main reason why we had lost the game, and again, this goes to not having Austin Seipp, our biggest, strongest player for us, is White Plains outscored us by 10 points in the paint. They had 36 points in the paint. We only had 26 points in the paint. So, we have Austin there defensively, holding them not to quite 36 points in the paint. And then on the offensive end, getting us up, above 26 points. Again, maybe that could be the difference in those 11 points that we lost the game by. But Austin was sick. Obviously, nothing we can do there. Sunday night, he's feeling better, hoping that he's going to be good to go for tomorrow to get into school and to play in tomorrow night's game. But we will see, to be determined. But regardless, I just tell you that because that definitely was a factor in dealing with White Plains and dealing with some of their size and dealing with some of their big guys. And they did. I think the strength of their team was inside and in that paint. So not having Austin was definitely difficult for us against White Plains. I've got some stats. Boston Smith had 15 points. John Vaquel had 16 points in the White Plains loss. But I guess that's the story on White Plains. Again, I wish I had Coach Betcher and Coach Procaccino here to sort of give me some insights and steer me back in the right direction and remind me sort of what happened in that White Plains game. But I know we were disappointed, and we had tried everything on the offensive end. We had tried everything on the defensive end to try to slow them down. We went with a number of different zones. We went man to man against them. And then on the offensive end, we tried a number of different things as well. I do remember us just not being able to get off threes. I remember late in the game, saying to the guys, listen, on the offensive end, here's the offense we're running in the fourth quarter. Get the ball, to get the ball across midcourt, and let's get the first open look that we've got at three, and let's launch it, because we were down by about 10 at the end of three quarters. Let me see exactly there. We were down 13 at the end of three quarters. So, we needed some shooters on that court in the fourth quarter. And I'm pretty sure I had five guys that could definitely, knock down, three-pointers. But overall for the game, we only shot 11 three-point attempts. We were 18% from three-point range, 2 for 11 from three-point range. Compare that to White Plains, they were 7 for 24. They more than doubled the number of three-point shots that they took, and they were 29%, 7 for 24. They were from three. We were only 2 for 11 from three. So for whatever reason, we just weren't able, to get off those threes, and that's a big part of our game. Boston's very good shooting from the outside. Really, all of our players. I mean, John Vaquel, even Mike Ferlivio, Justin Lamar. Even though he's a big guy, he can definitely shoot from the outside. Johnny Wilson, So we definitely have guys that can knock down threes, but for whatever reason, we just weren't able to get them off. And only to shoot 11 of them for the game is just uncharacteristic of us. To give you an idea, from two-point range, we were 17 for 33 from two-point range. That's 52%. They were 18 for 33 from two-point range. That's 55%. So again, from two-point range, we were 17 for 33. They were 18 for 33. Basically identical from two-point range, right? But from three-point range, that was the difference. We were 2 for 11. They were 7 for 24. And again, I've talked at length about, the points in the paint. They outscored us 36-26 with the points in the paint. And for me, the big thing was turnovers. We had 27 turnovers in that game, and we've just got to be better on the offensive end. So that was the week. 1 win against Ketchum, 1 loss against White Plains. So we went 1-1 for the week. This week coming up, we have got a really tough schedule. So tomorrow we host Ramapo at 6:30. That is not going to be an easy game. So we beat them earlier in the year by 30, believe it or not, 71-41. But as I remember, it was a lot closer than that. And Ramapo recently beat Ketchum by 6. All right, we just beat Ketchum by 7. So Ramapo beat Ketchum by 6 a week or two ago, and Ramapo lost to Arlington by 6. We lost to Arlington, I think, by 5 or maybe 3. I can't quite remember. So Ramapo has a good team. So don't think that 30-point win earlier in the year is indicative of how this game is going to go. This is going to be a difficult hard fought game. Again, they've got a couple of bigs. My memory of that game against Ramapo is Justin Lamar had started the game against one of their big, strong players, and defensively, that one of the Ramapo big, strong guys was just pushing Justin Lamar all over the court. And I'm screaming out, Justin, switch with Austin, switch with Austin. And it took me two or three possessions to get that message across to Justin Lamar and to Austin Seipp. Hey, you two guys have to switch defensively, because Austin's just a much stronger kid. He's not taller than Justin, but he's stronger than Justin. So we eventually did make that switch, and it definitely helped us out. But they've got a good team, Ramapo. They've got a couple of kids, I think, that can knock down some 3-pointers. I'll have to take a look at the book from that game, because I know that there was definitely a concern on one of their players kept knocking down threes on us, so we'll have to keep an eye on him. But also some of their bigs. I mean, they've got some big, strong kids on that Ramapo team. So that'll be a tough one to open up with tomorrow at home against Ramapo. It's been a while since we've had a home game, so looking forward to that. And then on Wednesday, we go to New Rochelle for a 5 o'clock tip-off. So a lot of these teams in Westchester, the varsity team plays first. So when we go to New Rochelle, we're going to play first. The varsity team will play first. And New Rochelle's got a really good team. I think they won the section last year, if memory serves me correct. And they've got a really good team. 7-4 this year, struggling a little bit, but they have a really good team. They beat Arlington, by a point this past week. I'm sorry, Arlington beat New Rochelle, 41-40, but right there with Arlington. And again, I don't have to tell you how good Arlington is. They are the Dutchess County champs for the holiday tournament, beating Lourdes by, 20 some odd points. So that's going to be a real tough one on the road at New Rochelle High School on Wednesday. And that, again, is a 5 o'clock tip-off. And then Friday, if that's not tough enough, hosting Ramapo and then going to New Rochelle. On Friday, we host Poughkeepsie at home at 6:30. That's a 6:30 tip-off for us. Poughkeepsie having a great season so far this year. They're 8-2. We scrimmaged them earlier in the year. Very similar to like a White Plains defensively. I mean, they really, really put a lot of pressure on you defensively. So I'm very worried about the 27 turnovers that we had at White Plains. We cannot have a repeat of that against Poughkeepsie, or else we're not even going to have a chance to win that game. So Poughkeepsie's got a great team. I think last year I had calculated how long it had been since we had beaten Poughkeepsie. I think it's over 30 years. I think it's like 34 years since a John Jay basketball team has beaten boys basketball has beaten Poughkeepsie. Obviously, always a very tough game. And with Poughkeepsie being 8-2 this year, and again, we got a good look at them at a scrimmage earlier in the year. They're your typical Poughkeepsie team, very good. Very difficult, and that's going to be a tough game. That's going to be a very difficult game against Poughkeepsie on Friday. So that'll be nice. They've got the Friday night Knicks, that they like to advertise on MSG. So it's going to be the Friday night Patriots, at John Jay. Hope to get a good crowd for that one against Poughkeepsie, 6:30 at night on Friday, January 16th. And then if that's not tough enough, hosting Ramapo, going to New Rochelle, Section 1 defending champs, and then hosting Poughkeepsie Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. On Saturday, Mount Vernon comes to John Jay High School, and we tip off against Mount Vernon at 12:30 on Saturday afternoon, Saturday, January 17th. So that, in my mind, is just you're playing one of the giants of high school sports, right? Mount Vernon. And they've had some down years, but they are back. They are ranked number 1 in Section 1. They're tied with Mamaroneck. They're undefeated in Section 1. So Mount Vernon and Mamaroneck are the two top teams currently ranked in Section 1. North Rockland is 3rd. Arlington is 4th. White Plains is 5th. Just to give you an idea of the teams we play. New Rochelle is 6th. Guess who's 7th? We are. So it's not going to be an easy week for us, right? So again, we host Ramapo on Monday. We go to New Rochelle on Wednesday. And then we host Poughkeepsie on Friday and host Mount Vernon on Saturday. And again, Mount Vernon's got a great team. They beat Arlington by almost 20 points earlier this year. They beat Ramapo by 50 plus points. They beat Ramapo by 52 points. So you think we beat Ramapo by 30 points earlier in the year. Mount Vernon beat them by 50 points. So Mount Vernon is back. They've got a really good squad this year. I'm looking forward to it. I always think, and I always tell the players, whenever you're facing, these really good, teams, no matter what the sport is. I tell the guys a story about when I was at Iona and I was looking to walk. I was a college freshman, and I was looking to walk on to the men's tennis team at Iona. I was on the men's soccer team, and I had tried out for the men's tennis team. So I'm going to these walk-on tryouts, and for these walk-on tryouts, you had to sign in, right? So we go up to the table and we sign in. Maybe I don't know, me and 5 or 6 other guys. And this is at least my memory of walk-on tryouts. And then they sit and they make you watch. They don't let you come onto the courts right away. So they make you watch the team. They've already got the team. They've already got, all the recruited players. So they're out there hitting. And I mean, it was like watching Wimbledon or like watching the US Open. And I remember looking out there and thinking, oh my God, these guys are so good. I mean, it's Division One, I mean, I don't know what I was expecting, but they're really good players. And just talking to some of the other players that were with me, that were walking on, I didn't know them, they didn't know me, but we're just looking at each other. We're like, whoo, these guys are really good. So the story I tell is every single player that signed in for walk-on tryouts left. They took their rackets. They're like, there's no way I'm making this team. I'm going home. But I didn't leave because my mentality was, man, what an opportunity. Listen, I'm not as good as these players. There's no doubt about that. But what an opportunity I'm going to get to step on the court and hit with some of these guys. I mean, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. And a lot of people don't think that way. A lot of people get intimidated. A lot of people, I teach AP calculus, and I always tell the students going into the AP calculus exam, you can't be intimidated. This is a really tough exam. There are really tough questions on the exam. Do not be intimidated by this exam. It's a wonderful opportunity for you to test your knowledge against, some of the most intelligent students across the country on this AP Calculus BC exam. And inevitably, a lot of students come back and their shoulders are down. They're like, man, that test was so tough. The questions were so hard. Yeah, it's AP Calculus. Of course it's tough. Like, there's so many smart kids taking the exam. They're not going to make it an easy exam. They're not going to ask you what 4 + 6 is on the exam. They're going to challenge you, rise to that occasion. So that's what I did in the Iona men's tennis walk-on tryouts. I just rose to the occasion. I finally got my chance, and they put me out there. I didn't realize it, but they put me against the best player on the team. Kid's name was Janabi. And, I was assigned to hit with him. And again, the idea for walk-on tryouts is none of these coaches want any walk-ons. They're like, they have to do it. They have to, open it up for tryouts. But they just, they've got the recruited players, and they've got all the best players in the school. So they really have no interest in these walk-on guys. So they're sort of trying to intimidate you, which it worked for most of them, but not me. And then when they put me on the court, I didn't realize it at the time, but they put me with their number one player just to try to get me out of there quickly. But I did the best I could. I mean, I hung in there again. I was not good. I deflected the first couple balls and just got on my toes and just started talking to myself like, I got to be quicker. I got to be fast. I got to shorten up my stroke. I mean, just the specific tennis things that I thought I needed to do just to try to survive. Long story short, 5 minutes into it, I was doing a little bit better. 10 minutes into it, I was kind of getting the ball back to him. 15 minutes into it, I was keeping a rally going. And at the end of the 15 or 20-minute tryouts, I remember the coach came over to me and he sort of, I think he was expecting me to quit or me to walk out or me to start crying. But he looked at me and he said, do you want to come back tomorrow? I said, heck yeah, I want to come back tomorrow. I'd love to come back tomorrow. And that's the end of the story. I mean, I came back the next day and I was on the team. I never really played. I mean, I was one of the worst players on the team, but just to be a part of that team was an honor, and it made me such a better tennis player. And that's what I hope our players bring when we host Mount Vernon on Saturday. Don't be intimidated by, oh my God, this school has produced NBA player after NBA player, and players go to go to big time Division I colleges from Mount Vernon High School, and their coach is just a legend in Section 1. All of that is true. All of that is true, but it's an opportunity for us to compete against the very best. So I hope that our players bring that energy, that they bring that competitiveness, that they bring that fire, and that they are not intimidated, and that they are not indecisive on the offensive end. Because again, against Ketchum and against White Plains this past week, just some really indecisive stuff on the offensive end. So if any of the players on my team are listening out there, let's be aggressive. Let's get after it all week long against Ramapo at home on Monday. And then when we travel to New Rochelle on Wednesday, New Rochelle is where Iona College is. It's now Iona University, but that's where I had my men's tennis walk-on tryout. So let's get after it, even though these guys are the defending Section 1 champs. I think New Rochelle won it last year. I guess I should have looked that up before talking. And then on Friday, when we host Poughkeepsie, we haven't beaten them in 30 plus years. And then Saturday, when we host Mount Vernon, just an awesome opportunity for us to play basketball against some of the best teams in New York State this week. So I hope we bring some good energy. I hope we're excited, and I hope we get after it. And what's the worst that can happen? We lose by 30 points. That's what's supposed to happen. But I believe in us. I believe in our team. I believe in our players. I think we've got great athletes, great basketball players. I think we've got very good competitive players and a competitive team. I really do believe in our basketball team. So I hope that it's certainly a tall order, to play Ramapo and New Rochelle and Poughkeepsie and Mount Vernon in the same week. But I believe in us, and I think we can do it, and I think we can be competitive in all 4 games. So that is the story, folks. That is, I think, all I've got for you for this week. Sorry, I sort of went off tangent on, men's tennis at Iona College, but it's a story that I always do love to tell, because it's just a story of being competitive. And again, I do tell it every single year to my AP calculus class as they prepare to go in for that AP exam. You want to give it everything you got, no matter what you're doing in life. You want to give it your very best, and what's the worst that could happen, right? You lose a basketball game, you fail a test. There's many worse things that can happen in life, right? We all know it. So looking forward to a good week of basketball here at John Jay High School. I think the weather is pretty good. So hopefully we won't have any cancellations with weather like we did last week with Arlington. And looking forward to the challenge ahead of Ramapo, New Rochelle, Poughkeepsie, and Mount Vernon. So excited for this week. I hope our players are excited for this week. And can't tell you how much I appreciate you listening and watching. And I will hopefully be back next week with Coach Betcher and Coach Procaccino, and we will talk about the week that we just had, and looking forward to talking to our coaches about that. And again, in the future, I'm hoping to have on our JV coach, Coach Mush, our freshman coach, Coach Cesarine, and hoping to have on some of the other players. So hoping to really do a good job with this podcast. This is only episode 3. But I'm excited about it. Thanks to Coach Horton and John Jay Soccer for getting us off the ground in the fall. I thought that was an awesome experience for us this past fall to do these podcasts. Just trying to keep everybody up to date on John Jay basketball, the latest, greatest news of what's happening and what happens in the huddle and in halftime and in practices, and just trying to give you some insights as to, what the coaches are thinking, what the players are thinking, and what our emotions are like, during the season. So wish us good luck this week in these 4 games, and I hope to see you guys next week. Again, thanks for watching. It was just me solo this week, hoping to have Coach Betcher and Coach Procaccino on with me next week. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Have a great week.